Have you ever felt like the world keeps getting faster, yet somehow emptier? We scroll, we post, we buy, we chase, but deep down, something feels off. We're surrounded by noise, information, and endless connection, yet many of us feel more disconnected than ever, not just from others, but from ourselves. More than a century ago, a man named Henry David Thoreau saw this coming. He warned that people would one day become slaves to their own inventions, chasing comfort, losing meaning, and mistaking motion for life. While the world celebrated progress, he walked away from it, building a tiny cabin by a quiet pond to ask one radical question: what does it really mean to live? Today, in an age of constant notifications, debt, and dopamine, Thoreau's warning feels less like philosophy and more like prophecy. But how did he see all this coming? And what does his message reveal about the soul we're losing in modern life? We've been told that modern life is the height of progress. Faster phones, smarter cities, more connections. Everything designed to save time. Yet somehow, we have less of it than ever. We work harder, move quicker, consume more, all in the name of advancement. But what if progress isn't always forward? What if it's a circle, spinning faster until we forget where we started? Thoreau saw the early signs of this illusion long before the internet or social media existed. In his time, it was the rise of industry, machines, and mass production. People traded time for comfort and comfort for meaning. He called it quiet desperation, lives spent chasing things that never truly satisfy. He once wrote, "Our life is frittered away by detail. Simplify, simplify." To him, every new convenience carried a hidden cost, the price of awareness. Because the more we chase efficiency, the less we notice what it's doing to us. We think we're becoming freer, but maybe, like Thoreau feared, we're just building prettier cages. But the trap of modern life goes deeper than busyness. It lies in something far more dangerous, the illusion of choice. Thoreau believed that the greatest trap wasn't poverty or hardship, it was comfort. Because comfort, he said, blinds us. It makes us mistake what's easy for what's right. When he built his cabin by Walden Pond, it wasn't an escape from life. It was a test. He wanted to strip life down to its bare essentials and see what would remain when every luxury was gone. No servants, no noise, no debt, just food, shelter, work, and thought. From that simplicity came a shocking truth. Most of what we call needs are actually wants taught to us by others. Even in the 1800s, Thoreau saw how society manufactures desire, how people learn to crave what advertisers, industries, and even governments tell them to. He warned that we spend our lives buying things we don't need with money we don't have, to impress people we don't even like. And isn't that our world today? We scroll through endless feeds, comparing lives carefully curated by algorithms that know our weaknesses better than we do. We buy not because we're empty-handed, but because we're empty-hearted. Thoreau once wrote, "The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it." Every hour spent chasing trends, every dollar spent for validation. It's a trade we make with our soul. If our desires can be manufactured, then our freedom can be too. And that's what Thoreau feared most, a society where people think they're choosing while quietly being controlled. But he also believed there was a way out, a place where truth could still be found, untouched by the noise of society. And for him, that place was nature. When Thoreau left society for the woods, he wasn't running away from the world. He was running toward himself. He wanted to strip away every distraction until only truth remained. In nature, he found what civilization had taken: silence. The kind of silence that doesn't just fill the air, but clears the mind. Every sunrise, every ripple on the pond, every gust of wind became a mirror, reflecting back the parts of himself he'd forgotten. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life. To live deliberately, not automatically. To choose every action instead of reacting to every impulse. Out there were no advertisements whispering what to want, no crowds deciding what mattered, only the slow rhythm of life itself, the honesty of seasons changing, the patience of a tree growing one ring at a time." In that stillness, he began to see what society hides so well, that peace doesn't come from having more, but from needing less. Thoreau realized that nature wasn't just a place, it was a teacher. It reminded him that everything alive has its own pace, its own purpose, that nothing in the forest hurries, and yet everything gets done. He saw that modern life's chaos wasn't progress, it was disconnection. Because when you lose your bond with nature, you lose your bond with yourself. But Thoreau's discovery wasn't meant to stay in the woods. He wanted to bring that lesson back, to confront the quiet crisis he saw consuming the modern soul. Thoreau called it the mass of men leading lives of quiet desperation. It's a haunting phrase, and even more haunting because it's true. He saw people running from one task to another, collecting possessions, chasing status, yet never stopping long enough to ask why. They looked alive, but their souls were asleep. He warned that society was building a system that rewarded conformity and punished reflection. A life where you're praised for keeping busy, not for being aware. Where exhaustion is a badge of honor and silence feels like failure. And if that was true in the 1840s, what would he say now? We live in a world that never stops. Our phones vibrate like alarm bells. Our feeds pull us from thought to thought, and we mistake motion for meaning. We call it productivity, but often it's just distraction disguised as progress. Thoreau believed that this was the true poverty of modern life, not a lack of wealth, but a lack of purpose. Because when every moment is filled with noise, there's no space left to hear your own voice. He wrote that most people are mechanically driven, trapped in habits that keep them from truly living. And that's the quiet crisis he tried to expose. A world where people survive instead of live. But Thoreau didn't stop at observation. He believed the cure to this quiet desperation wasn't rebellion through anger, but rebellion through simplicity and through integrity. Thoreau wasn't content just to think differently. He lived differently. To him, integrity meant refusing to live by rules that felt hollow, even if everyone else obeyed them. In his essay, Civil Disobedience, he argued that real freedom begins the moment you stop following what you know is wrong. He refused to pay a tax that funded a war he didn't believe in, and spent a night in jail because of it. His message was simple. It's better to stand alone in truth than to stand with the crowd in comfort. And that's where simplicity becomes more than a lifestyle. It becomes resistance. In a world obsessed with more money, more fame, more validation, Thoreau's refusal to want was revolutionary. He believed that saying no could be the most powerful act of all he wrote. A man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. That wasn't just about possessions. It was about attention, desire, and control. Because every want that owns you, every trend that dictates your worth, takes a piece of your soul. Thoreau's rebellion wasn't loud. It was deliberate. He chose stillness in a world of noise, reflection in a world of reaction. And through that simplicity, he discovered something most people spend their lives chasing: freedom. But even Thoreau knew the fight wasn't over. Because while he found peace in the woods, the world beyond them was only growing louder. And in many ways, his warnings weren't just about his century. They were a prophecy for ours. If Thoreau could see the world today, he'd probably think his warnings came true, only worse. Because we've built the very system he feared, one that sells distraction as happiness and busyness as worth. We wake up to screens before we even open the blinds. We chase validation in likes, shares, and views, proof of life through pixels. We call it connection. But how many of those connections actually mean something? We live surrounded by noise, convinced it's progress. But deep down, we feel the same emptiness Thoreau described. That quiet desperation wrapped in Wi-Fi and convenience. He warned that the world would teach us what to want and call it freedom. Today, algorithms decide what we see, what we crave, and sometimes even what we believe. Thoreau wrote, "A man is rich in proportion to the number of things which he can afford to let alone. By that measure, we are poorer than ever, not in money, but in presence." We've traded silence for scrolling, truth for trends, and depth for dopamine. And maybe that's what he meant when he spoke about losing the soul. Not in a religious sense, but in a human one. The loss of self in a world that never stops talking long enough to let us listen. But here's the thing. Thoreau didn't preach despair. He offered a way back, to slow down, to choose deliberately, to live by intention rather than habit. He believed that freedom isn't found in speed, it's found in stillness. And maybe that's our challenge now. Not to reject the modern world, but to reclaim our place within it. To remember that progress without purpose isn't evolution, it's exhaustion. Thoreau went to the woods not to escape the world, but to remember how to live in it. He wanted to strip life down to its essentials, to ask, what is truly necessary? And maybe that's still the most important question of our time. Because somewhere between ambition and anxiety, between noise and numbness, we forgot how to be. We learned how to produce, consume, and perform, but not how to exist. We became experts in everything except ourselves. Thoreau's voice still calls to us across the centuries, quiet, firm, and unyielding. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you have imagined. It's not a slogan. It's a challenge to live deliberately, to slow down enough to hear your own thoughts, to trade noise for meaning and speed for sincerity. Maybe the loss of soul in the modern world isn't permanent. Maybe it's a call to return, to remember that beneath the algorithms, the opinions, and the endless scroll, there is still something untouched, waiting to be heard. And if we can find that again, then we haven't lost the soul of the modern world. We've just been asleep. And it's time to wake up.